Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about refactoring and when enough is enough. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, Frederick, how much refactoring is enough? Rather, at what point should one stop refactoring? I have seen junior devs who don't refactor at all, mid-level guys who refactor too much because they are using those ideas for the first time and they are too excited. The senior guys refactor just enough to be at peace. My question is, what is just enough? Well, I would say that it's practically impossible to say exactly when refactoring enough. Like, I mean, honestly, the way that you posted, I'm probably wrong here. I'm not saying that you're saying this, but it sounds to me like this is something you think that should be a continuous type of thing that you're dealing with, and it's not. It's really not. There is a rule that we call the Boy Scout rule, which is a very nice idea that, of course, has value and validity, and we should, if we find ourselves finding small tidbits here and there, small pieces of lint, well, not specific lints, but linting issues, but physical lints. I'm not saying code lints, just things that are not so nice, right? We can deal with these. We can, with a low effort and low risk, just fix those things. The thing is, though, guys, usually the way that refactoring works is that people don't do it for one and only one reason: because it is a hassle to deal with actually writing the code, but it also means that you are now risking breaking something that is working. You are, in essence, increasing the scope on your story. And to the majority, practically the majority, almost every single developer, if you ask the majority of developers if they can pick between refactoring something and delivering on time, or like actually getting stuff done and giving a good number to their manager, they will say, when they're not under the thumb of somebody, yeah, refactoring is a very good thing. But what they will do 99.99999% of the time is to go for the quickest solution that they can whenever they're faced with any type of refactor that puts their deliverable at risk, because that is a basic survival mechanism for most, especially if you're a junior developer. You will want to refactor and you will want to do all of these things, but when push comes to shove, usually the thing that you see is that people either don't have the energy or they don't want to risk it because it's more important. And it is, I'm very, very sorry to say, short term, the most important thing is to get the thing out the door on time and not disappoint all your stakeholders and your customers and so forth. This is why refactoring continuously is a very nice thought, it's a very nice idea, and you do it when there's a very low risk of anything going wrong. But usually fixing something that is like 5 minutes and almost no risk whatsoever. I mean, I'm not talking, we're not in a simple case, you rename a variable name to something nicer. You change a symbol of a class name or something like that to something nicer. Definitely go for it. Nobody's questioning that, unless of course there are unforeseen problems. But I'm not going to talk about those problems because those problems can come and bite you as well. But this is the simple stuff. But usually when we talk about an actual, like a more in-depth refactor, we talk about something that is literally work, like you actually have to do it. So actually most people don't refactor all that much for this exact reason. And the thing that I think is more important to ask than when should we stop refactoring is, when is it actually a good investment to do something bigger? Like, when do we do a major refactor? Because the thing is, guys, if you don't do it ever, it is just a matter of time before the system is so shit that you won't be able to. Because then I like to say that what happens is that you get to critical mass. You get to a legacy system that has reached a complexity level where it's hacks upon hacks, and at some point it's actually so complicated that you can't really fix it. And what usually then happens is that it fucks up all the code outside. It's like having a rotten core, and then everything just spreads from there, because every layer becomes rotten because the bottom is rotten, and it becomes a game of shim programming, as I like to call it. Shim programming is basically you don't really have a good code base here. You're just trying to fit features in wherever they will fit, and then just manually regression test the whole thing, because nobody actually knows. If there are tests, nobody even knows how the tests work, because it's basically just a magic box at this point. So the mindset that you should have about refactors is it's very tricky for someone with not that much experience to do this. You will be able to do this when you become a senior developer, when you have worked enough that you can understand the flow of work, what's important, what's not important, like all of these sorts of experience types of things. And I usually say that the only people who do really good refactors are senior developers. Juniors are usually really good at like doing might come with small suggestions here and there, but most of the time I see the mid-levels and the junior developers who are very enthusiastic about clean code and this sort of stuff. They are it's not always this case, but I've seen enough times where they actually don't improve things. They either just change them or actually make the situation worse, because they many times think that there's a paradigm that's going to solve this problem, or there's a library that's going to solve this problem. And sometimes they get lucky and it actually works, but many times they actually just switch one problem for another problem. The really good seniors, though, they ask one very specific question before they start, and they evaluate this thing really well. And that question is very simple. Is the thing I'm going to touch changing enough and causing is it changing enough that it's worth us actually looking at this piece of code? That's the first and primary focus. Is this something that is really slowing us down, this thing? Because if it's a piece of legacy code, then it's just an eyesore, and if nobody uses it, then it's an eyesore that nobody cares about. Then it's just working. Don't fucking care about it. Let it just exist there and try to forget about it. Like, just orphan that code off and don't bother with it until you actually have to touch it. But if it is something that is actually part of everyday life, it's something that is literally something that you do pretty much all the time, and it does have an actual, it's a cost benefit analysis. You look at how much is this relevant to the daily job, and how much of a difference will it make if we actually invest and take a look and really make this a nice thing. That's the question. That is the only question that will matter to a very experienced developer, because we all, like the really experienced developers, they already know that there is no such thing as a flawless code base. You can't have this mental status. I'm sorry, if this is what you're looking for in your code, you're gonna have to do that on your own time. You're gonna have to create a hello world application, and then maybe you can write it perfectly so that your mental gremlins go away and you feel like this is a beautiful project, because almost every project you ever work on is going to have flaws. I promise you, just as anyone who's ever created anything has something about their creation that they're not as pleased with as other stuff, that's your life. And so it's not constructive to have the idea that you're just going to keep on improving on it until you feel mentally satisfied. What you need to do is, as I said, focus on the relevancy of the refactor, because the big rewrites usually, and this is a very good saying, I was taught this many years ago by another developer. He said that, Frederick, the big rewrite never works, because the thing is that the code looks the way it looks, usually mostly because it's needed to look that way in some way. And when you think about the big rewrite, you just usually look at one part of the system and you forget about 10 other things that's going on that's not part of your equation. And then you start the big rewrite, and then you start to compromise because you realize that you overlooked a bunch of stuff that you weren't aware of when you were starting the rewrite. And now you're actually just creating hacks to fix that part. So by the end of it, you might have maybe made the part that you looked at nicer, but you're still in a shitty position with all the other stuff that you forgot about. So what I want you to take away from this is that I don't think it's a healthy mindset for you to have the idea that you should constantly refactor things, because refactoring is usually an expensive and risky process. It often is the case where, unless it's something really, really small, you're actually at risk of breaking something. So if you're working on story A and you want to fix feature B that has nothing to do with story A, well, now you have to test both story A and feature B at the same time, even though you didn't have to. So if you really want to get this refactoring thing done, try to let go of this idea that you're going to have a perfect project. You're not. You're never going to be completely happy with your project. And start asking the really important question, which is this code here stopping us from being as fast as we can? And really think about that. Is it real? Like, how much of a time difference will it make if I fix this thing? And have a plan, like really know what you're going to do and figure out, all right, if I can do this, we're actually going to shave off a few hours, a few days, or something like that. Try to really look at the time it's going to save you, because that is a measurable improvement that has value, and it's very likely that that is the sort of improvement that will turn out well at the end. If you have an idea, if your only response to what you want, the reason why you want to do something is, oh, it's just going to make things nicer, or it's just going to make everything better, then you haven't most likely thought the problem through well enough. Have a great day.